Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Steven with a PH said, "Hey, Steve, check out the story regarding Corvettes being stolen." It's from Fox News, and this is the kind of story, it'll raise an eyebrow or two, but it actually has an interesting legal lesson, I think, here. Arizona man just released from prison steals truck hauling Corvettes because he needed a ride, according to the sheriff. He allegedly stole a truck transporting 10 Chevrolet C8 Corvettes worth about $1.25 million. And he says that it wasn't because of the Corvettes. He just needed a ride. And, you know, I'm not a big Corvette guy. I know some people are really into Corvettes. But I do like the C8. In fact, of all the Corvettes, although I like the split window too, but I think of all the Corvettes that are out there, I think that the C8 is the best looking, at least to my eye. There's some that I don't really care for at all, but I do like the C8s. Anyways, Steven Soros wrote this for Fox News, and again, he spells his name with a PH also. A man who stole a semi-truck hauling over $1 million worth of new Corvettes from an Arizona truck stop told deputies he only took the truck because he needed a ride home after being released from prison. You have to understand how conspicuous this is, though. If you steal a vehicle and it's just some nondescript minivan or something, it's going to be harder to spot than, a semi-truck filled with Corvettes. I mean, when you get home, you park it out front and walk inside and hope that they don't bother to try to figure out who took it. I mean, so the man's 23 years old. He's from Lawton, Oklahoma. And he assaulted and robbed the truck driver at a truck stop in Wilcox near I-10. That's according to police. So there's more to just grabbing the truck here. He was talking to the victim about his truckload and lulled him into a sense of security before grabbing him and throwing him from the cab, according to the sheriff's office. And I've mentioned before, I've got quite a few truck drivers in my audience, and I have an immense amount of respect for the hard work that they do. And this is a crying shame, because when I first saw the headline, I just assumed the guy came by, jumped in the truck, and somehow took off with it. Didn't realize he'd actually harmed the truck driver. So now suddenly, that's a serious thing too. So he drove away in the semi, which had on board 10 Chevrolet C8 Corvettes, estimated street value of $1.25 million. I inserted the word street because I think it makes it more interesting. A deputy spotted the stolen truck and attempted to pull the vehicle over, but officials said the driver refused to stop. And he then sped away recklessly, forcing other vehicles to leave the roadway. So yes, it became a chase with police vehicles and a semi with 10 Corvettes. The stolen truck eventually stopped, and the driver was taken into custody. He admitted to stealing the vehicle and advised that the Corvettes were not the reason, that he needed a truck to get home, as he'd just been released from prison. It makes you wonder if you'd asked the man with the truckload of Corvettes and said, "Hey, look, I know it's a little unusual of a request, but is there any chance you can give me a ride down the road? I need a ride. I'm on hard times right now, but I'm kind of trying to get my life together. Could you give me a ride?" I wonder what would have happened if he tried that. I know it's a novel approach, but the man was booked into the county jail on multiple felony charges, including robbery, 11 counts of theft, and those are theft of means of transportation and felony theft. So they did chalk it up, apparently, at least on one of these, as 1 count per vehicle. Meanwhile, the semi-truck was recovered without any damage and released to the original driver so he could continue with his delivery. The deputy and officer showed great restraint and patience in bringing a serious crime to a peaceful resolution, all while keeping the property of others from being damaged. So apparently the truck wasn't damaged, which is good, and the Corvettes weren't damaged, which is also good. As you can imagine, you order a Chevrolet C8 Corvette, you're waiting for it. And next thing you know, hey, ain't that your Corvette on TV being driven in a high-speed chase on the back of a truck? Which is kind of wild. But the one thing I want to get at here, and this is one of those things, you hear all kinds of stories. And as an attorney, I pay attention to the legal ones. And I remember a story years and years and years ago, and I'm going to have to pull a Ronald Reagan on you here. Just trust me that this is a true story, because it's in the back of my mind as a true story. But there was a story about some kids were out trick-or-treating. And some older kids were running around grabbing bags of candy from little kids. So they'd run up, grab a little kid's bag of candy, run off with it. Go, ha, 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 we just got their candy. And so one little kid was out trick-or-treating and he's wearing eyeglasses, like these, but prescription. And he put his eyeglasses in his bag. And teenage kid comes by and grabs his bag of candy, runs off with it. Ha ha ha, I got your candy. And your eyeglasses. And so a parent calls the police and they go, we know who did it. It's this other little kid who's out, a teenage kid out running around stealing candy. And so they go to the kid's house and they find the kid. Did you take his kid's bag of candy? Yeah, right here, boom. How serious of an offense is this? Well, it turns out the cash value of the candy is quite low. Let's face it. Halloween candy is cheap. But those glasses were actually kind of expensive because they're prescription glasses. And when you take somebody from somebody's person by force, it's robbery. And it's robbery above a certain amount because those glasses were in the bag. And now, don't get me wrong, the kid was a teenager. He was charged, I believe, as a juvenile. So it wasn't quite as serious of a thing. But the point is, some people are saying, but he didn't intend to steal the kid's glasses. He was trying to steal candy. Well, who are we going to side with on this one? The victim or the thief? And by the way, one of the reasons that you don't want to commit crimes is that they harm other people. And you might also not realize the harm you're causing because you're ignorant of the true facts. Now, when this guy jumps in the cab of the truck that's got 10 Corvettes on the back of it, and he steals the truck, he knows he's stealing 10 Corvettes. It's not like the eyeglasses in the candy bag. However, he probably didn't realize, I'm facing a whole slew of charges here. And I wouldn't be surprised if, theoretically, there's probably some federal charges, too, because the truck's being used in interstate commerce. But it looks like they got him on a stack of state counts. But again, remember the 11 counts of theft of means of transportation because he stole 11 vehicles, 1 big rig and 10 Corvettes. So again, the guy probably didn't think through any of this. How much smarter it would have been, and again, this is all relative, but I'm making a point here, how much smarter it would have been to just steal a car rather than the truck with all the Corvettes. So unfortunately, the guy's made a name for himself here. There's a very good chance that some judge is going to look at this and go, it's a whole stack of charges here. And on top of the fact, he just got out of prison. Now, we don't know what he was in prison for. But the fact that he just gotten out of prison doesn't bode well for him, as we say. Because when you go into court and you're being sentenced for something, assuming you get found guilty, the guy might get off, you never know. Assuming you're found guilty, they sentence you, and one of the things they look at is, do you have a record? Oh, you've got a record. Okay. Is this a matter of wrong place, wrong time? No. Did you use any discretion at all when committing your crime? And again, this might sound like an odd thing to talk about, but the fact of the matter is that the fact that you go out and do something that appears to show that you have almost no restraint and don't care about the consequences of what you're doing, don't care about what you're doing, means that you're a larger threat to society than somebody else who comes along and just steals a car. And the fact that he needed a ride home, well, that's nice. But he didn't use a whole lot of, good thought in the process of what got him to where he stole something. And so I'm not trying to belittle the theft of automobiles. I'm just saying when the guy walked into the parking lot of a rest stop, okay, and there's all these vehicles there, and he's going to steal one of them, it's quite possible he stole the worst one for him. So now I always point out that no one ever consults the attorney before they screw up. They always consult the attorney after they screw up. And so I've often thought to myself as my clients telling me their story, wow, too bad you didn't call me beforehand and ask me if you should do this. But again, nobody ever does that. So I don't know. And, the guy might have just been sick and tired of being in prison. He wanted to get home. But like I said, I know that hitchhiking is out of vogue these days. I haven't seen somebody hitchhiking for a long, long time. But I remember back in the old days, you'd see people near the on-ramps or sometimes on the freeway trying to hitch a ride. And sometime when I've got more time to tell the stories, I'll tell you about the times I was out on vacation with my brothers and my mother. Not with my dad, but with my mother. we'd be up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan driving along, and we see a hitchhiker along the scenic stretch and give him a ride. And I'd always think to myself, poor fool. He's about to get a station wagon filled with a mom and her 5 or 6 kids, depending on how many of us were on that trip, and get jammed in there with us and listening to us fire questions at him like he was an alien. And so we did that more than once. But like I said, I seriously wonder what would have happened if he struck up the conversation with the truck driver, asked him about his job, asked him what he's hauling, asked him where he's going, where he's coming from, and just said, something, I hate to ask, but I just really need a ride home. And I'm walking. I'm on foot. Is there any chance you could give me a ride? And I wonder what the guy would have said. You never know. You never know. So crazy story about Stephen with the PH. Thanks for sending it, by Stephen Soros from Fox News. Arizona man just released from prison steals truck hauling Corvettes because he needed a ride, according to the sheriff. And when you add it up, just the cost of the Corvettes, $1.25 million, not counting the cost of the truck, which is probably substantial as well. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Prison is just one word to you, but for some people, it's a whole sentence.